This is Horns Up. I'm Animesh,
And I'm Peter.
and today we are chatting with Denmark's Mul. Mul?
Yeah.
I got that right?
Yeah, you actually got it right at the first time. Well, yeah.
We've got the band's vocalist Kim with
Yeah.
us. Hello.
Yeah. Hello, nice to
How are you
meet you.
doing?
I'm doing quite fine. I'm actually not at home right now. I'm at my father's sister, and I just went from my grandparents down in the southern part of Fyn. That's an island in the middle of Denmark. I have some time off from work to see my grandparents, and tomorrow I'm doing an interview in Copenhagen. So, and then I have the time to talk to you guys. Really nice to meet some of you from the southern hemisphere down in Mumbai.
Yes, exactly. It's the place where the seasons don't change as much.
Yeah, of course, not as dramatically. But
That's why you have more happy music than we do.
That's why we have Bollywood, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there must be something about the weather in Bollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
and the colors, right? Don't forget
And
the
the
yeah.
colors.
colors. Yeah.
Well, have you seen our shirts? Like, we like colorful shirts as well.
Oh yeah, that actually was surprised me about like the latest press pictures, right? And
It's deliberate.
Okay.
Because
Why was it
there's
deliberate?
nothing more provocative nowadays to do something that contradicts people's expectations of how you can dress as a black metal band, for example. Metal are some of the most conservative people I know.
Yeah, it's so weird, right? I mean, just before this call, Peter and I, we were chatting about this band called Party Cannon.
Yeah.
Have you seen that logo?
No.
No, you haven't? I
No.
want you to do this right now if you can.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Google Party Cannon logo.
Okay.
You have to do it.
And they're releasing a new song, apparently, which is called...
Wait, I have the video here. It's called "I Believe in Danny Filth."
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my. Wow.
And now
That's-
imagine...
That's fucking edgy nowadays. If you have that Toys R Us font.
So here's the thing, right? And it's a small aside, but the reason why they get so much attention is
Is
now they're a
because of
slam
this,
death
yeah.
metal band. Now imagine you see all these barely decipherable logos, and then you have Party Cannon right in the middle.
I love it. I love it. But see, there's something about that, it's really on the nose, and doing something just the opposite of what people expect. That's actually pretty punk.
I have to bring this up, and considering I'm talking to you,
Yeah.
you guys, right? I mean,
I get it.
not too long ago, everyone was up in arms when a black metal band released a cover with pink on it, right? Which was legible font. So that's crazy, just how things have changed. And in a way, it's kind of become acceptable, right? I mean, like people get Party Cannon, they get the vibe that it's going to be
Yeah,
fun.
and people also get Eskimo Callboy, so.
Do you think there's a need for metal artists to keep pushing the envelope in that manner?
I think in some sense, because you can kind of get stuck in some rut where I think the culture kind of it preys on itself. It just becomes more and more secluded, and there will always be elitists.
Yeah, purists and elitists.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily do anything good for the scene in that sense. One thing is that doing it to provoke, but we also like colorful clothes, so it's kind of like, why not? Like it's sticking it up in there, right? So I think the best description of our band was I think it was nasty glitter.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty on point. That's the vibe that we want to give off in some sense.
Wow, really
'cause-
nasty glitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a first I've heard of.
Yeah. I've like
works.
I wouldn't put those two words together to I mean, especially after hearing your music, nasty glitter aren't really the two words that I would use as adjectives. or as the script is.
that could describe like Motley Crue at one point, or we were talking like Cinderella. But
Yeah.
Well, I heard that one, and then the other phrase. I think there was one of the big newspapers here in Denmark said something about. Do you want a charcoal flush eye? What was it called? Candy floss. A
Charcoal candy floss.
Candy floss. Yeah.
that's like quite specific.
That's metal.
Yeah.
It is.
Charcoal candy floss is metal.
But
Like
candy
black
floss
colored
is,
candy floss is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be cool.
it's about juxtapositioning, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think that's what's pretty provocative, and I think that's what pushing the envelope. But it's also a test of people's ability to see beyond the facade and recognize either songwriting. Like I think Nikolai has written some really, really good songs, and it's melody that conjures images into my mind that I just can so easily relate to, and kind of gives me a sense of it's actually somewhat easy to put feelings and experiences into that music. So I see that as actually pretty quintessential. So if people can look behind that front, that that is the industry nowadays, to be honest, right? If you can look beyond like the brassness of a lot of hardcore bands, you can also see a lot of vulnerability and a lot of like pain beneath that. So I think it's about not judging a book by its cover. Something draws you in, but it's the quality of the art that you get that gets you to a place where you can kind of appreciate it more, because you have given it time to kind of seep in and infect in some sense. For us, I know there's a lot of really true edgelords out there that are kind of shameful maybe to hear Møl. It might be a guilty pleasure for some.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why, but that's because I know that there are really strong feelings regarding black metal, especially in the more Scandinavian countries. There was one guy who was kind of on a forum that wrote something that I was culturally appropriating Viking Norwegian culture.
Really?
And my mother, she's from South
Damn,
Korea.
then Peter and I should be cancelled, because as Indians who don't have any say about metal, right? It's not in our roots at all. It's not our language.
But you connect with the feeling, right? So
Exactly.
so I think genres will be there's always be people who will kind of have their opinion, or also because of the culture that evolves around it, or the cult following, or then it's not specifically about the music, but more about the expression in general, or who I want to be identified with. And that's also, I think that's one of the beautiful things about metal, because there's a lot of tribalism in some sense that are
It is. Yep.
There's
Not
a lot
just
of
in the
community
music.
right there.
Yep.
But sometimes the community can kind of there's a lot of gatekeeping going on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's been one of the biggest problems, right? I mean, like right now there's a lot of talk about why there aren't a lot of women in metal, and there's been so much chatter that women don't feel welcome at gigs, because the moment they're at a gig, there's someone asking them, okay, name 5 songs by this band whose t-shirt you're wearing or whose concert you're attending. Or it's like, oh, are you like the girlfriend of somebody in the band, that's why you're there? And
the name 5 songs bit doesn't just happen to women.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I think
like
it's happened to me. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, really. Like, I really like Sebastian Bach, right? I got into Sebastian Bach largely because of his own album Angel Down, and then after that
Mhm.
started listening to Skid Row.
Yeah.
So in those days, I would relate more to Angel Down and Sebastian Bach's solo work rather than Skid Row. And so
Hmm.
when I said that, hey, I think Sebastian Bach is a better vocalist than Axl Rose,
Yeah.
yeah, at that time, somebody was like, "Oh, you think so? Oh, name the Skid Row album that you
They,
heard. Name
yeah.
5 songs from
Show
this
it
album.
that you're a dedicated fan.
I'll prove that Axl Rose is a better vocalist just by the mere fact that he sings on songs. Whatever, man. I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. There will always be nerds out there that kind of, likes to, dissect music like that. I used to be like that in my teens.
Hmm.
But I think you get to a point where it's kind of like you just focus on, especially when you work with songwriting, you focus on, what works, like
Yep.
what can contribute to something that makes a good song. Doesn't have to be something that's like brand new or really revolutionary, but I think quality recognizes quality in some sense.
I'm going to just hark back to something that you said, and that was about books being judged by their covers,
Mm.
right? And a mental note I made in my mind when you first said that was, do you think Mull gets judged uh, as something that it's not supposed to be, or that
most
something it's not?
most definitely. At least for when you see comments on Twitter that are like, look at those shits, no thanks, like, they
Does
don't
that
even
bother
know.
you?
Nah, it doesn't. Like, if you're maybe it's not for you. Like, if you're so caught up in how people look, like, maybe you're missing out. Like, we can't help but poke a little bit fun at 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 people's pre
Preconceived
Preconceived notion.
notions?
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And like a lot of the concept for some of our music videos are also like really connected to that. Like, for instance, the video for Surf.
Hmm.
Ken and I, we helped direct some of those with our great videographer Tobias Scavenius, and I was really adamant about, like, we have to do it in this format, like portrait mode. It's really important for me. So, like, all of the stuff had to be like positioned like that and filmed like that, and because I sent him references of another video by
Uh-huh.
an artist called John Mark Macmillan. It's totally different music, but he has a song called Wilder Love. Go
Okay.
look it up at one point.
Yep.
It's an amazing video, and an amazing song as well. But that everything is, it's built into that format. That was actually before TikTok became such a big thing, or like everything was kind of like portrait mode, right? And stories for that sake. But I just like that the way that everything in the shot is directed or made to fit in
To
that.
fit that format.
I like that, but
Yeah,
at the
if it's
same time,
executed well, like I'm a guy who makes videos too. At
mm,
one of the things that I do. So, to get that kind of a format right, it takes effort. It takes a lot
mhm.
more effort than shooting it normally.
Yeah, and we didn't think about it as TikTok format until we saw the YouTube comments. Actually, we
That's
we
that's
we didn't.
shitty. That's just people bitching because they have nothing better to do.
Yeah, like, oh, I would love to hear that song in horizontal, man. Like, you, you know,
You can't please everyone, right? There's
no,
always going to be.
see, that's the thing. Like, the joke's on them,
Yeah, the joke's
because
on them.
because that whole video is actually about how we dress up things to fit a specific format. To, the lyrics says, changing colors, symbolic rights with no meaning, changing colors. it's just another system. It's just another prison. It's just another, you think you're changing. You think you're doing. You can be, misguided by the spectacle. You can get sucked into that, but it's just a front. It doesn't mean anything. People will get it if they get it, and if they don't,
Let's talk album. I mean, because we're here to talk about Diorama, right? And you said like you're doing press in Copenhagen, and already, I mean, the album's been out just over a month, but already a couple of publications have put you as the best album of the year already. How does it feel? I mean, like considering your work, it's been like 3 years since George, right? How does it feel like just reading some of the press?
We can kind of still feel kind of, I know that we all feel kind of baffled and still kind of surprised. I know that we do like songwriting, and Nikolai is, I'm really sorry that he isn't here, because like he's one of the main reasons why things like really function on a really deep level. Like I think the base, if we could say, like the base level of quality really comes from his way of structuring songs, and also writing melodies that carries from one theme into the other, and it seems seamless, even though that things might not work in theory. Like practically it's just presented like coherently. That's one of the things that I really adore about his songwriting. But at the same time, there's always, everybody said, we're all like, oh yeah, it's a sophomore album, man, it's gonna be so fucking hard.
Actually, that's kind of what I wanted to bring up, Rex, right?
Yeah, like I think just trying to put everything aside, everybody's expectations, and focus on, I think Your was really much for me a focus on my outlook about the world. Like we're ending up in the ground someday, a pretty existential, pretty hard subject. And for me, this was, instead of a movement outward, it was actually a movement inward. I think that comes across from a lot of other interviews that I've done, right? So I think at the same time, there's also on the songwriting side, like Nikolai and Ken has they know what they're doing. They're really good at working together. And when I sometimes get invited into that couples therapy, they are not saying words, they're just and you can't understand shit. Like they speak a different language and they know exactly what each other means. So I remember once they were like, yeah, come during one of our writing sessions, and I was invited into a Skype call and they were speaking gibberish, man. So usually I'm the one who gets called when they're really upset and really can't figure out which part.
You're the therapist in this couple.
Sometimes, but also kind of the judge and the jury, because when it's about, are we going for this piece or are we going for this piece? And then I don't know who has offered one or the other. But when I say, oh yeah, that one, that's clearly that one, I can just see that big ass grin on one of them, and the other's like, damn it.
Damn
you. So I know somebody won. But humor aside, like I know that they have like years of experience of writing with each other. So there's just a lot of foundation that's put on that. I know Møl will not exist if it was not for that songwriting. So a base level of quality, song structures and songwriting, that's what we're like focused on.
Yeah.
So coming back to that question about the sophomore album and expectations, like I think this year or a year ago this time, we were like, yeah, this is never going to be just as good as you are, maybe. I think that was our expectation. But I know with Ken, that's a deliberate thing. Like he does, like he always downplays stuff. Like, yeah, it's shit. Like it's really.
And plus, at that point in time, I mean, it happens to everyone, right?
Yeah.
You're so close to what you're creating that it just loses its magic until you come back to it and you listen
Mhm.
to it and you go like, yeah, this is actually
See, that's
not
the thing
bad.
about re-experiencing. Nikolai can have been worked on a melody for like two fucking years, and then he presents it, and he feels that it's really fucking old. And I
Mm-hmm.
listen to it, and it's like, yeah, that's it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like the biggest fan, you know, when I get to listen to some of these demos for the first time. So in some sense, I'm kind of also contributing to something that's, I think we're all contributing to something that's bigger than us ourselves.
What did you guys want to like kind of achieve with Diorama? I don't know if achieve is the right word, but
I think that depends on which perspective
I'm not
you
looking at it from a sales point of view or from a,
mm,
how this will help you possibly get more tours, or even if it's the fact is that this is on a big label for you guys, right?
mm,
So that's clearly a jump that was made, but leave all that aside. Let's talk
mm,
about the music.
mm.
What did you guys want to musically achieve with
I
the
know
diorama?
I know I'm kind of speaking for Nikolai here, right? But I know that he wanted to evolve the sound into something that's even more coherent and more willfully direct and really well refined. One of the things that he wanted to do differently from Yor was actually a lot of the guitar work, to put more emphasis on the layers and to put more emphasis on like there was Yor was a really great production, but there's a lot of nuances from the guitar work that's just way more refined in my opinion on this one. But
I agree with you.
that is because of Ture Madsen. Like he has just so many years of experience, and we can hear that his way of working with the guitars is just pretty quintessential. And I know that for a fact that Nikolai, he just loved working with Ture because they really got experimenting a lot, and they were like, yeah, brainwaves. Sometimes it just they syncopate, like they're and it's way more organic, it's way more vibrant, it's stretching, like the sound
There's
stretches.
constant push and pull happening.
Yeah.
That's so
Exactly.
dynamic. It's so, I mean, this is something that Peter and I were discussing before this interview began. That,
Hmm.
there seems to be this word that's followed you guys around ever since we started hearing your music on a global level, right? Which is the word black gaze. And then you
Mm.
have black metal and you have shoegaze, all of that. Um, it's very weird, but, you know, I I would actually use the words hardcore and post-hardcore, and I think those are the kind of words that describe the sound on Diorama better than black gaze and shoegaze and black metal as such. I mean, obviously, full, not,
But that's because post-hardcore and post-rock actually comes from shoegaze. Like
yeah, in a way they do, definitely.
um, there's some sense on it's more broader strokes. I
Yeah,
think if you're putting like an allegory on, there's broader strokes of melody that kind of gets small intricate patterns, but it's texture. Um,
yep,
that's
yep.
the key word. It's actually feeling. That's one of the key differences between a lot of this atmospheric music and a lot of progressive like music.
Yeah, I think that's pretty bang on. But there's one thing that there's another really like weird point for me personally, and um, on Yord,
Hmm.
what attracted me to Yord more was the instrumental version of that album.
Hmm.
Is there going to be an instrumental version of Diorama? Do you think it'll work as a pure instrumental album?
I
Yep,
think so. Um,
really.
but in some sense, That
I
depends.
I
And it's
couldn't
weird
do
that
it.
we're
In
asking
my
the
head, I couldn't
vocalist.
do it. Yeah, in my head, I couldn't do it. Like for me, the vocals on Diorama definitely need to be there
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the vocals weirdly are the things that, like, you would normally say, most reviewers, etc., say, and the adage is that it's the bass or the drums that's holding the entire album together, the ideas together. For me, it's the vocals.
yeah. I'll actually correct myself in that regard because I know that I've been working way more on the vocals on this one, and not necessarily deliberately, like
Uh-huh.
trying to put
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah,
emphasis, but
yeah.
just challenging myself on, like, for instance, the clean parts. That's something where I felt I could contribute to the atmosphere in a way better sense and underline um, the vulnerability and sensibility of certain parts of certain songs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a lot of I think texture as well built into that, knowing that something just fits on top of the other layers production wise, but also like when we do it in a live setting, like I'm deliberately put just on par with the guitars and maybe a little bit lower, um if it's the live mix,
Mm-hmm.
so that feels like orchestration, that feels like a coherent thing. Like I'm not frontman. That's one of the things that I have had such a hard time with death metal for a long time, or in deathcore and all of that, where it's just really vocal driven, but there's nothing to lean back into. And I feel as a vocalist that I am contributing to a whole, something I can't stand on my own. It's that sense of amalgamation that's happening,
Yeah,
right?
it's almost like a glue. Your performance here actually does bind everything together, and that's like awesome actually.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually go back to something that you said earlier, right? And
Yeah,
I have to give a shout out to Lisa from Hold Tight PR, right?
I
Because
see some
she's the one
amazing.
who kind of introduced me to Mool. And when I heard Jord, I was just like, "What the fuck is this?" Because like you said, right? It's so many different things that you'd normally think would not fit together, but it's just done so seamlessly and works so well. And it's very strange that you say the kind of headspace you're in or the way you kind of wrote the lyrics, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what connected to me. And like here I am halfway around the world kind of connecting with what you wrote and the kind of things. And that's a beautiful part about music, right? Is that sometimes when you're in that certain headspace or certain mind space, music
Mhm.
comes to you at the right time, and it kind of always you can go back, listen to that music and revisit those memories in there, right?
I can totally relate.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I always feel there are certain melodies that kind of becomes the soundtrack to different seasons in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes some artists just, without knowing it, just hits that spot.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that that's that we actually get to be that spot for some people. But
Yeah.
it's also that's the gratitude of all of this. Like, we make something and we send it out into the universe and people take it in and make it their own. That's the beauty of music.
Yeah. But take me back to like what you were talking about, that whole thing, right? Because I didn't realize there was that entire process. I thought the way I looked at it, especially looking at your live videos and all, that a lot of this stuff is like jammed together in a rehearsal room or something like that. But compared to Jordan, you said that, on Diorama, it was more introspective as opposed to kind of like outside looking at the world and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Take me back to that moment when you heard Nikolai, right? Like when you heard those riffs that they were working on in there. Take us back to that moment. Like, how did that entire, like your songwriting process along with that, the lyrics with that go?
I think for me, it's also it is actually having that one song that defines the rest of the album, actually.
Okay.
Like, for instance, when I wrote your that actually made me like finish the whole album. That was the piece to the puzzle that I needed. And I think on this album it was actually 2 songs. It was Twissin,
okay,
and it was Diorama.
Oh, okay, cool.
Those 2 combined together. They are both in Danish. That touches, I know personally, that touches something like really something, a part of my therapeutic process of a lot of like my way of dealing with my family. Because I don't know if you know, but I went through a pretty hard time with during when I entered Møl, I had 6 months of sick leave from my studies in doing social work and social science and I used to be like a believer, a Christian, and that album kind of, that half a year I experienced a loss of faith, or at least there was something like existentially, like a crisis that I was going through, and it was really hard to put into words. But I know for a fact, like looking retrospective, that was my way of reconciling myself with the thought of ending up in the ground someday, and not training for utopia, not ending up in heaven. So that was what was going through my mind at that point. But with Diorama, like or at least the Your track, that is also in Danish. So it's, that's the thing, like all of the Danish lyrics that I write, those are the most personal ones. It's a way of obscuring, having some sense of privacy. So, people around the globe might not necessarily get that really, really personal thing, but there might be Danes who I know that there are Danes that are like those, what you're saying there is just,
Yeah.
There's just something about your first language that ticks an itch. So it's kind of to obscure or keep something for myself in some sense, that I chose those lyrics to be in Danish. Yeah, so it's the same thing with Diorama. Those 2 songs, Twissin and Diorama, are in some sense part 1 and part 2.
Interesting.
So Twissin is really about the struggle, like final struggle. If we look at the album as an emotional narrative, that is the the great conflict. And Diorama, I see that as the epilogue.
That makes sense. Yeah. Tell you what, since we've been chatting about these 2 songs, let's play them out right here on the podcast so that people can actually listen to it, and then we'll come back in and chat with Kim a little bit more.
Thank
Kim, given how you just told us how personal these songs were,
Mhm.
right? There's one thing that I kind of like asking most extreme metal or just heavy metal vocalists,
Mhm.
which is why choose a sonical output structure like extreme metal to articulate these thoughts and lyrics, especially when you want to share them with the world? Or do you want to share them with the world?
I think, no matter what you do, we're all telling a story. If you're an architect, you might build a building and you're telling your story by doing
Mm-hmm.
that. Or if you're doing arts and crafts, like, you do tell a story like that. Everybody talks about themselves in some sense. So I feel, this is just what I do. Like, this is my way of kind of um, putting things in my personal life to rest at some point. I've used this as a therapeutic tool actually with my therapist, and like I'm really open about that. You know, I think mental health is just really quintessential to a lot of the themes that I end up um, not being afraid of tapping into, because it's something that I recognize in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I always need kind of like a cultural hook or some sense to hang a lot of my themes and texts on. And I don't know if you know the movie Hereditary. Uh,
No, sorry.
it's a horror movie.
Okay,
Okay, that figures. I don't know
It's a fantastic horror movie.
cool.
I've watched it so many times, and I'll just give you the quick plot over it. But
Sure.
that's one of the reasons why it's called Diorama, because it's about this artist or mother and artist, like a family mother. She has two children, and then she makes miniature models or dioramas of really traumatic events in her life.
Okay.
And we start out the movie with her mother's funeral, and even though that her mother is the one who dies first, she's just the looming presence throughout the whole movie. Like,
Wow.
even though, so it's called Hereditary, and it's about, you're just inherit a lot of traumas as well, like.
Yeah.
And that just kind of speaks to me. It spoke to me on a really deep level, because I just saw how she used her art to kind of like trying to process this. Her therapist is actually her husband.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah,
that's tricky.
yeah, it is.
Wow.
And I think that we don't get that like, they don't say that specifically, but I think that he has encouraged her to pursue her arts and crafts. So pretty traumatic things happen in that movie, and as they are happening, she is trying to process that or depict that. Like, there's an accident that happens. I won't spoil it here, but there's a pretty, like, really gruesome thing that happens, like, in the first half of the movie. That's just, it's heartbreaking, and it's so visceral.
Mm-hmm.
And what does she do? Like, the first thing that she do is go up to her attic and start
Constructing.
depicting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that trauma, or that actually ends up eating her.
Mm-hmm.
It actually ends up, in a literal sense, possessing her. So it's a possession movie.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
so that's one of the reasons why I called this diorama, because there's that she wants to analyze it. She wants to understand those monsters that she's battling. But instead of, I think I've taken many of my childhood traumas and stuff like that, put it up in front of me and looked at it from different sides, seen the, all the shades of dark, but also the light things, like really objectively trying to understand what happened, to know that I might not drag that trauma into my my coming marriage. I just got engaged this this summer, so I'm getting married this April, and there's just something in my generational, I think that's the thing in this generation, like you have seen what your parents can drag into,
Yeah.
you know, just a lot of stuff, you know, nothing comes from nothing, you know. If your parents are struggling, there's usually a pretty good reason why that happens, if there's something that is not dealt with. So I know for a fact that is something that I had to tackle in my family. So I've used actually these songs pretty personal, like with my father, and put those texts in front of him like a kid's drawing.
How did he react?
Actually, surprisingly well. You know, it just
I would be surprised if he didn't react well.
It's way easier to talk about things when you hold it out in front of you instead of you did the what you did the thing, like, so, you know, it's just, it was a really hard talk, and you get to a point where, you know, I got to a point where I just got a lot of acknowledgement that, you know, I can put things into words that he has never been able to, because he didn't have somebody to show him that. So I just, that's one of the reasons why I see this as pretty, you know, song wise, structure wise, for me personally, this is really important.
Wow. No, so you know, with I always get flummoxed by these kind of stories, right? Because when you actually get to know how personal an art is for an artist, right? It completely leads me to think the other way about anybody who's either trying to do a review or build a list or just listen to something and dismiss it or accept it in one listening. They'll never be able to make make it the same way that it was intended to, right? How do you deal with the fact that, okay, you've released this album out, and people will now basically make whatever they want to make of it?
I think it's just, there's just a lot of beauty in that. You know, whatever people
don't you want to just hold on to it?
Yeah, but you know, I think, well, I'm also a live musician, and I really like how things can take a turn, or at least how I get to re-experience the songs in a live setting, because when they're performed, you know, it gets alive on its own. Many of the songs that we play on from the Your album, I know that I've put, you know, different things for to kind of like fit that that feeling. I've done different things that can kind of underline specific passages in certain things that I just experienced live, doing in a live setting that just works. Like, and I know Nikolai does that for a fact too. Like, he has some interesting solos that suddenly appear because he has, you know, he knows the song to death, and then there's, you know, something that just comes out of that. And I think that's one of the freedoms that we have with the genre that we play, because if it was just BPM, like periphery style, you know, you wouldn't be able to jam like that. So we've also experienced, like, in a live setting, something, you know, amazing happens, especially when you know, the PA goes or anything like that. We you know, that's where the exciting things happen. We end up jamming stuff and people think it's, you know, deliberate. But we're having the time of our lives because we just know how well, you know, we have to support each other, who's pushing, who's pulling, and that makes this music just so fucking alive.
No, I must say, I mean, like, I really enjoy watching all the live videos that you all put out, because you can tell, right? Like, I was just watching, I think, the APW one,
Mhm.
and you can tell you guys are having fun with that. It's not like, you know, y'all are like, oh my God, we have to get it this way.
Oh yeah, that
my
too,
God.
that thing too. But when you're playing, you're not
Yeah.
practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to give you a bit of backstory for that one. We drove from Glasgow to London in one stretch. I think two at 2 a.m. at night, and
Wow.
we had to head into that studio and in Soho, and our driver, he was such a champ. Like, he just pulled like 2 double espresso shots and a Red Bull, and then he
Wow.
went. So when we went into the studio, he was sitting next to Ken's drums in the bass drum bag, sleeping, and we tried to get all of the gear from the street, where Spice Girls, by the way, were having a reunion press conference, and it was swarming with press.
Whoa.
And we were unloading on the just outside from the van just onto the street, and then up in the building there. So it was really stressful. But we made it, and that's some of the experiences that will still, like, where everybody will in the band remembers that, and are like, yeah, that was kind of hardcore, but also really fun.
Wow, that's a great story. Like, now that watching those videos is just going to give me like a complete different thing, right?
I'm exhausted.
You're going to be thinking about Spice Girls now, aren't you, Peter?
Well, not gonna lie, I did listen to them growing up, so why not?
I did too. Everybody did.
Did you, Animesh?
Oh no, I did. I even watched the movie.
You did?
Yep.
Wow.
There's a Spice Girls movie.
Yeah, I remember that one. I just watched the documentary about them. It's really
There's a
interesting.
documentary about the Spice Girls?
Yeah. Like a lot of years after, and it's actually pretty good, because it's about feminism and how how it is, being those girls in a really men-dominated industry.
Yeah. There's a story there.
Yeah, and
I
like,
need to check this one out.
you just see like Scary Spice being really fucking scary, going up in the face of one of the the directors, who's like, why you're telling me that, to show more legs and stuff like that? You're talking about my friend right here. Like, who are you to say stuff like that? Get the fuck out of here. Like, it's really, and there's just 25 guys who are like, oh, I couldn't. Like, that is some level of pressure that you have to go through, right? So, like, it's really nice to see that backdrop story, like, who also went for it career-wise, like Carrie Halliway. She was kind of like a really pretty determined woman, and who also made it afterwards.
Yep.
True.
So there's just, as a guy in the industry, or at least on the fringes of music industry, like, it's just interesting to look at their career and see how well they kept themselves or didn't.
Yeah. We never get a chance to kind of ask a lot of musicians this, so I'm going to ask you. This is your first album on Nuclear Blast, right? And in the last month or prior to that also, you would have seen the kind of difference. And in a way, Nuclear Blast is considered as a major in at least the metal in there.
It's the biggest independent one, right?
At least. And what's that been like? I mean, just the kind of
did that influence you? I mean, did it change anything about how you guys wrote your music? And forget writing your music, and how you guys get promoted and merchandise, etc., etc.
We had a finished album when we approached them.
Ooh.
Oh wow!
So they were like, "Yeah, that's cool," and we were like, "They're like, yeah, we're taking what you're offering." Like, that was pretty cool. it's a big step of confidence for a big firm like that. I know that we were a wild card in some sense, like we're not, but I think that company has also changed a lot. Like they've had a lot of restructuring and a lot of new people in. And I think something is happening in at least the record label industry, of some sense of, a bigger willingness to collaborate, and not just be those fat cats with the stacks of money, but also like, trying to, work with artists. That's one of the reasons why I like that a lot of artists are focusing at least more on the legal side of things. Like you're not just signing your album off for now and eternity throughout the galaxy, for no, like, what you're worth in a better sense. You make sure to have a lawyer and stuff like that, and go have business people on your team that understands that it's also a business, not just the arts. That was actually pretty essential for us. Like we're really happy about our manager Mirza, and we've also been kind of self-managed through a lot of our past. So it's knowing what you do in that sense, so that if we were to be dropped by a label by any sense, like we would also know how to
react to it.
Yeah, or how to work through it. So but yeah, obviously, like nuclear is massive for us. It is like, it's just so great, at least for if you look on the day-to-day assignments, like it's just so great for, at least for me. I do a lot of the social media, like to have somebody to spar with and coordinate with, like a whole team dedicated to do that. And like essentially be helping us, like they're doing this full time, right? And all of us we have day jobs. So it's just a really big help, at least for if you're thinking on it as a career choice. We were really lucky in some sense. Like, I don't know if but like Holy Roar just imploded. Like it really did.
Yeah.
I think we were kind of lucky that we knew that people were on the lookout. Like Century Media was they had a lot of presence when we were doing European tours, like every second venue. We just met some from them, and they're like, "We're watching you." So
that's nice, right?
It is, especially when they put people on the ground like that. So we were sure that people knew that we could not only deliver like music, but also a live outfit that's just as great. I think that's pretty quintessential. And then the expression, like a coherent package of these three things, then the rest of it, that's luck. That's actually if people will play you and like your music. That's always the gamble. Like, but when we hear people from the industry, like, listen to it and say like, yeah, that's legitimately good. Like, we won't change anything. Then it actually boosts or at least reaffirms the confidence that you go into things with, and knowing that you followed your gut feeling. And I know that we did that for a lot of the things that we have done.
It's interesting you say that, because this automatically makes me want to ask you about the future. And what's weird is, I know it's extremely early to even ask you guys about album number 3 or what the future holds for Mal as such. Given what you just said about getting onto a bigger label, etc., etc., do you think now that there'll be more pressure as such to live up to?
I think we can do what we want in some sense, but there are no promises. I think we will always disappoint somebody. We did disappoint somebody with this, but I think there's just a lot of I have a lot of respect for bands who try to do things on their terms, and try things out. I don't know. It's not to diss like AC/DC or Slayer but they've recreated a lot of their albums throughout the years, right? They have their sound. But I just really like the boldness of some artists, explore, not for the industry's sake, but for themselves. No matter if I'm actually a Parkway Drive fan, and I really like the old stuff, and I really hate the new stuff. But I respect their choices as an artist doing this, because they really, I know they want to play like stadium shows. That's pretty fucking good. And that music that they make right now, that's fucking stadium rock. Like, I believe that's the case with a lot of bands like Gojira as well. I really like Terra Incognita and all of that, like Morbid Angel worship that they used to do back in the day. I'm really into that. I love it. But at the same time, I also respect the journey that they've been on, and not catering to anybody, but doing their thing.
And I must add here, then creating that new guitar effect for the next 5 years, right? That every band will kind of emulate.
It's become their signature sound.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and they got it from somewhere. Well, if you hear like that's just Morbid Angel, man. It's
Yeah, but I mean, even besides that, they keep making this attempt of trying to figure out a new way of doing it, right?
Yeah. But yeah. I believe on the new album, like when I heard Born for the One Thing, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, like that's the
Gojira I want.
That's stuff. That's the stuff.
Fortitude was pretty good. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. I think there's a lot of the vibes that I get from a lot of the nu metal part of Sepultura, like Roots and stuff like that. There's just something going on right there where I can't put a finger on it, but I just see similarities. And I know like Joe did work with Max Cavalera on Cavalera Conspiracy, so I think maybe the tribalism thing.
True. And well, they did have a song,
Amazonia.
So. Pretty cool. Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Yeah. Wow, we've been chatting for a really long time now, and Kim, thank you so much for sparing so much of your time with us. I know you're, as you told us, you are with family and we're keeping you away from them. So we'll let you go at the moment, but hopefully we get to talk again soon.
I hope so too.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I was very excited at the opportunity of speaking to you, especially, like I said, how much George meant to me. And now I know I'm saying it wrongly, but yeah, I just blame my Indianness and not being Danish in there. Like, to be honest, I actually had to go look up how to exactly pronounce mool. And I went for a Danish pronunciation.
You're not the only one. Like the rest of the English-speaking nations, they're doing the same thing.
We get confused when we see anything additional on an alphabet.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that a fancy O?
Do check out Diorama and let us know what you thought about it. Definitely what I would recommend. Start listening to the first song, pause the record, come back, listen to this conversation, and then go on and finish the album, because then it'll give you a completely different perspective. So tell us how you felt. As always, you can reach out to us at hornsupod.com. I'm on Twitter at AsmoAni. Hornsup is on Twitter at HornsupPod.
I'm at Trent Crusher.
Kim, are you on Twitter?
I am.
Do you want to share your ID?
Yeah, that's KSTERNKOPF. Yeah, and that is also my Insta tag.
Awesome. So you know where to find Kim now. That'll be all, gentlemen. This was Horns Up.
Horns Up, guys.